In this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson explains the process people go through before and after their world comes crashing down.
Okay, so the other way of looking at it is when you're, so there's lots of ways of conceptualizing what you encounter when you move into the world. So we said, well, you know, there's positive things you encounter, negative things, there's expected things and unexpected things, there's desired things and undesired things. And another way of thinking about it, which is more, in some sense it's more empirical, is that you encounter tools and obstacles, right? And tools move you forward. And tools are a funny thing because they're sort of half objective and half subjective, right? They're a thing, but the thing is defined by their use. But weirdly enough, we tend to define thing by use. You know, and I mentioned this before, so most people when they're thinking about language think that you use words to label things. But it seems much more likely that we use categories as tools to act in the world. And so we don't see things. We see the use of things or the fact that they get in our way. And so you're trying to set up the world so that what surrounds you are entities that you can use to get what you desire and to eliminate obstacles. And in fact, that's what you generally do if you're a good manager, right? A big part of being a good manager is to, first of all, lay out a plan for people that's a hierarchy and where the hierarchical levels don't conflict. And the second thing is you get rid of obstacles for them so that they can come to you and say, well, I can't do this because this is in the way. Your job is to get it out of the way so that they can move forward. So and it's a very good way of conceptualizing yourself as a manager. So now there's obstacles that you understand, and those would correspond to the micro levels of the hierarchy, right? And then there's obstacles that you don't understand, and when they come up, they just blow apart your whole plan. So, now, associated with that, expected, unexpected, desired, undesired, tool, obstacle, is a corollary, which is all the things that you're not conceptualizing as tools or obstacles or as things you don't know, they're irrelevant. And that's a really useful thing to know, because it means that whenever you're looking at the world, it's like the world is a sea of snakes, and you're only concentrating on one snake at a time. But then if you make a mistake dealing with that single snake, what happens is you're neck deep in snakes. Because all of the thing is when you make a mistake, and this is a critical issue, when you make a mistake and you blow the framework within which you're construing the world, the framework that narrows it for you, what happens is that all the things that you've been ignoring become potentially relevant. And that's overwhelming. And that's partly why your body reacts as if it's under tremendous stress. So, for example, you know how these things work. And again, I think betrayal is the best example. If you have a partner and they betray you, then all the things that you thought were true about them aren't. And all those things you ignored as irrelevant turned out not to be irrelevant at all. So, you know, maybe the person told you on a twice weekly basis that they were too busy studying to spend any time with you. And, you know, you just put that down into the irrelevant zone after some coming to terms with it, and then you find out, well, that isn't what they were doing during that time. And then the next question is, well, what else did they tell you that wasn't the way it was? And the answer to that is, could it be anything? It means every single thing about your relationship, past, present, and future, has now been cast into the realm of potential relevance. And almost all the relevance is negative. And that's the descent into chaos. So that's the best way to conceptualize chaos, is because what happens is that your plan is what narrows the world for you and constrains it, makes most of it irrelevant. The parts that aren't relevant, positive, and the negative elements relatively rare. That's what the intact hierarchical plan does. If you blow the hierarchical plan, then all your nice little subdivisions are now irrelevant, and every little monster comes up to face you. And that's the descent into the underworld, right? And people do not like that. And no wonder. The reason they don't like that is because it places them in a situation that's so complex that it could easily exceed their resources. You know, and so, for example, one of the things that happens to elderly people sometimes, this isn't precisely a betrayal, is, you know, they've been with someone for 40 years and the person dies. Well, the probability that the partner will die in the following year is much elevated compared to their normal mortality. And part of that is they just, it's not that they're grieving exactly, although they are. what's happened is that one of the fundamental axioms of the structures that they use to encapsulate the world has been blown out, and everything comes crashing down. And so sometimes people just don't have the resources to make it through that. They're just done. You know, they don't know how to pick up the pieces and start again. You know, and at some point, maybe, God only knows, at some point, maybe that's not what you do. Like, I don't know what you do after you're married 75 years and your partner dies. I mean, maybe you have a party if it's been an absolutely dreadful marriage, but in all likelihood, you know, it's like a stroke that leaves you with only half your body. It's not clear that you can recover from it. So